Hello everyone, welcome to another episode of I've Been Playing. Today we're looking at Alan Wake Remastered. As is probably obvious from the title, this is a remaster of Alan Wake, which originally came out in 2010, and this remaster was released as a kind of slightly delayed 10th anniversary in 2021. It is a game that was made by Remedy, who have more recently made Quantum Break and more recently made Control, which complicates the story of Alan Wake a little bit because they're all interconnected. And with Alan Wake 2 on the horizon at some point, it is probably going to get even more complicated, but we're not going to get into that, just know that it is kind of an interconnected universe, or at least there is some overlap. More so with Alan Wake and Control than Quantum Break, but it is there. Ignoring all that, Alan Wake follows Alan Wake, funnily enough, and his wife Alice as they go to the town of Bright Falls for a vacation, and Alan is a writer and is having trouble writing, so part of the whole thing is that his wife, Alice, wants to get him to write, and he is not happy about that when he finds out that's why they're there. Of course, very quickly that becomes not a problem, because he finds out that first of all, he's apparently already written a manuscript, and that it's actually coming to life around him. So essentially what happens is that darkness, or the darkness, has come alive and is taking the people of the town and turning them evil, and it's just festering within them, and you have to shine light on them in order to attack them, and you have to attack them because even if you push the darkness out of them temporarily with the light, it still is there, and also they still try to attack you, so it's not like it's completely gone or anything, it doesn't disappear, they're enemies now, so basically you murder this entire town, really, is essentially what you're doing, if you think about it. But the darkness also steals Alice. It doesn't take over her in exactly the same way, at least that doesn't seem to be the case. She gets dragged down into the depths of the lake that you're staying at, which once you go to the authorities and tell them this, they're like, there's no house on the lake anymore, it disappeared in the 70s. So there are very obviously some presumed supernatural events happening. And as you go along, you pick up manuscript pages of the manuscript that supposedly Alan already wrote, but doesn't really remember writing, that kind of tell you things that have happened in the game, or will happen in the game, or just the events on the pages are happening in the town. And the idea is that the presence in the lake makes whatever you write, I suppose, come to life. Now, I've talked about this a little bit before. The first time I played Alan Wake, I played the original Alan Wake, and I didn't hate it, but I didn't like it either, and I didn't realize at the time what the game was going for. So this is why I gave it another try. I played it a second time. I played the remastered version, and it's one of those cases where the game looks just like I remember it looking when I played it in 2010, but considering I played that on 360 and this on Xbox Series X, there's no way they look the same. But it looks very nice. I don't think they did too much to update the visuals. Alan himself maybe looks a little different, but the animations kind of seem like they're similar, because they're not terrible, but they're probably not the thing that has been updated most. It's probably the graphics. It's the smooth frame rate. It felt very good. I think all the controls were the same. I had the same kind of frustration with the controls that I remember having with the first one, but I liked it a lot better this time because, as I said, I didn't really understand what the game was going for the first time I played it. I didn't realize that it was kind of supposed to be this kind of cheesy kind of thing, and like I said, it's not like I didn't like it. I just didn't like it as much as everyone else who played it seemed to like it, and I thought maybe I was missing something. Clearly I was, because I didn't know that they were going for that specific kind of campy kind of horror. There's a little bit of influence from Stephen King and stuff, and just various horror authors, and a lot more Twin Peaks than I realized at the time, because I hadn't watched Twin Peaks the first time I played it. Not nearly as much as other things, but it's definitely there. So I definitely enjoyed it a lot more this time. I think the smoother frame rate helped, although I did have an issue in one of the episodes, I think it was episode 4, where you're fighting on a stage on the farm, and for a good half hour or so, I would be able to walk, and then it would just stop and freeze, and the sound would keep going, but the screen would freeze for a good 30 seconds to a minute, and it was fine when I was just walking around, but it was very not helpful when there were enemies attacking me, because I didn't know where I was or what I was shooting at, because it freeze frame. I couldn't do anything. That was the one main issue I had with it, performance-wise. There was one part where I got stuck, but it was my own fault. And there was one specific part where the physics just went out of control and I died because Alan got flung up about 300 feet into the air and fell to his death through no fault of my own. I don't know what happened there. It's the only time it happened. It was hilarious, but it was annoying because I had to redo that section. And it was a pretty difficult section anyway, so I was like, you know, if I'm gonna die, I at least want it to be something that makes sense. This also comes with the DLCs, the 2 DLCs, the Signal and the Writer, I think they're called, which I didn't play before. I played again this time, which also kind of gives a little bit more to the story and probably connects it more to the following 2 games. Or, like I said, mostly Control. There are more references in Quantum Break than direct connections, whereas in Control there's more of a direct connection. And I'm sure there are all sorts of theories on how all of these things interconnect, which may or may not get answered in Alan Wake 2, who knows. But overall, the DLC helped me appreciate Alan Wake's story a little bit more. Replaying it made me appreciate Alan Wake's story a bit more because it was more or less how I remembered it, but I appreciated it more for what it was and what it was trying to do this time, as opposed to just being like, this is kind of silly, which is kind of how I viewed it the first time, and was the wrong way to view it, and I understand that now, so I'm sorry, Alan Wake. I probably didn't give you a fair assessment the first time I played. But that's what remasters are all about, right? You get the story and the updated graphics, and then you can reform your decisions because it's, well, technically 11 years later. If you've already played Alan Wake, the original Alan Wake, I imagine you have probably picked this up to replay it if you enjoyed it. If you haven't played Alan Wake, I would recommend playing it. It's a good, fun story if you go into it not like I did the first time, expecting more horror than what it was. Not that it can't be scary, but I was expecting more horror. I think that was the thing, part of the thing too. It looks great. It's fun, but occasionally frustrating to play because the controls can still be a little bit difficult to contend with, and there are, like I said, occasional graphical things that make it next to impossible. At least I experienced graphical things that make it next to impossible to play parts of it, but the vast majority of the game was playable, it was smooth, it was fun, it was entertaining. It's just a fun game, and if you're a fan of their later works, or specifically if you played Control and not this, I would recommend going back and playing this, especially since there's the Control DLC that's entirely based off of Alan Wake, or having to do with Alan Wake, and if you played that and you haven't played the original Alan Wake game, what are you doing? Play it. It will give you so much more context. And I'm pretty sure it's out on everything, so why not pick it up? But those are kind of my thoughts both on the original Alan Wake and the remastered version. Have you played either version? Let me know down in the comments down below, and whether you'll be trying it out. Leave a like if you enjoyed this. If you did enjoy this and you're not subscribed, consider subscribing. I do one of these every Monday, and I do a whole bunch of other stuff that you can check out on my channel as well. I will see you next time!